The power of human consciousness is demonstrable by the fact that despite all the things that are thrown at us, the cradle-to-grave programming, vast numbers and an exponential curve of numbers are now waking up from it. And it's this awakening that is going to bring this control system down. When I said publicly in 1991 that the Earth was a living entity, that we could communicate with, it could communicate with us, people just dubbed me crazy. And now we're seeing scientists who have studied this coming to the same conclusion. The bottom line is this: everything is conscious. What we call creation is like an ocean of infinite energy, which is manifesting itself in different forms. It's like we may perceive ourselves as droplets, if you like, individuals. But if you put a droplet in the ocean, where does the droplet end and the ocean start? The ocean is the droplet is the ocean, and it's the same with us. You may look as you do, I may look as I do, that wall may look as it does, but they're all expressions of the same energy field, manifesting in different ways. So of course the planet itself is a living, thinking, emotional entity. And we are interacting with that energy field. And one of the things the Illuminati have set out to do, and are trying ever more to do in the period we're experiencing now, is to bring the vibrational state of the Earth's field, the Earth's consciousness, to as low a point as they can. Because we, as human beings, are living in that energy field. And it's very simple. If you affect the sea, you affect that which lives in the sea. And so the more that they can lower the vibrational state of the planet, the more it becomes, if you like, treacle-like density. The more we living in that energy field are pulled into that state. When you have the wars and the environmental destruction and all these things that cause tremendous negative emotional energy, then you are lowering the vibrational state of the planet, you're lowering the vibrational state of the people, and you're basically holding them in a vibrational prison, which makes it much more difficult, not impossible, but much more difficult for them to hold connection out into the infinite beyond, where they can be in this world but not of it in terms of their perspective of reality. If you disconnect people and hold them in this density, hold them in this illusory reality, they are in this world and they are also of it. And therefore, the only information that they have to get a fix on how they see life themselves and reality in general is through the eyes and the ears. And who controls that? The Illuminati control that through what we laughingly call the education system, the mainstream media across the planet. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to disconnect us from multidimensional infinity so that we don't see the world from that perspective, and therefore see through the illusion and see through the nonsense and see through the lies. And then once they've disconnected people, they then program this lower level of our consciousness with a reality that suits them. And this is why people who have had a different perspective on life, a different perspective on reality, who have held that connection to some extent out into the infinite, and have expressed that view, expressed that vision of reality and possibility here, they're the ones that are dubbed crazy, lunatics, and dangerous. Why? Not because they are, but because from the point of consciousness that they are perceiving this world, to people who are here, the vast majority, that is just crazy. I mean, if you said to people, is that table solid? They say, of course it is, of course it is. Well, it isn't, it can't be, it's made of atoms, right? And atoms are not solid. Tell me how it does that. Our minds do that by turning vibrational fields into apparently physical objects. The denser the vibration, the slower the vibration, the more dense that we decode that into what appears to be a physical object. And so someone who's out there and can perceive that sees the world in a completely different way, and because it's different to the norm and the mass norm, which is programmed into people from cradle to grave, they're just isolated and called crazy, when in fact, they're the people we need to listen to.
Yeah, I remember Stanley Messenger. He said to me once that there are no objects, there are no things. Everything that, like for example, the wooden table, everything is an event, because once that was a tree, and in years to come that will be thrown away into a skip and it will end up decomposing somewhere. We don't perceive that as an event because it's happening on a slow scale, but there are no things, there are only events.
Well, that table was once a tree, and when it was a tree it was an illusion. Now it's a different kind of illusion, and when it's thrown on the scrap heap and goes back to energy as it decomposes, then it will still be an illusion. And this is for me, if you're talking about how we're controlled, how the few control the many, if you can suppress the information that people receive in terms of what is possible, you to the same rate suppress their perception of what is possible. Okay, now once you have accepted that what we're told is possible is how it is, then you're living in a box that big. So anyone that starts to talk about things that are beyond that perception of possibility, you immediately dismiss them as crazy. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. A few centuries ago, when people said the Earth was a sphere, they were perceived as crazy and dangerous. And one of the reasons was that if you lived on the bottom of a ball, you would fall off, right? Now, once you introduce the law of gravity, what appears at first sight to be a nonsensical idea becomes perfectly logical. However, if you suppress at that time knowledge of the law of gravity, then people are going to dismiss the truth because they can't perceive that the truth can be possible. And when you're talking about entities that shapeshift, that appear and disappear, UFOs that appear and disappear, if you program the population to believe that this world is all there is, that this is a solid world of solid individual objects, then the idea of things appearing and disappearing or shape-shifting from one state to another, to that sense of perception, is totally ludicrous. But once you introduce the suppressed knowledge, which is that this world is not solid, and what we're living in is basically symbolically a radio station, in terms of all the radio and television stations broadcasting to this place now are all existing in the space that I'm sitting in. I can't see them. They are not aware of each other unless they're really close on the dial, because they're on different frequencies. And if I'm on or something else is on a different frequency, a seriously different frequency to that wall, then I can walk through it, or something else can walk through it. Just as if I turn my radio on now, I tune into a radio frequency broadcast that's coming through this wall or this window. And so this reality that we think is so solid and all that there is actually like a radio station. And this physical body, this holographic illusion, locks us in, tunes us in like a radio to this radio station, to this reality. There are so many elements to this. And when people say, well, why have we known about this before? Well, I've spent 20 years in nearly 50 countries researching a great stream of different subjects which on the face of it appear completely unconnected. And it's only when you connect these apparently unconnectable subjects and areas of society and life that the puzzle pieces fit to the point where you can go, oh, I can see it now. Now, billions of people wake up every morning and they go to work, or they try to survive another day. They're not spending 20 years fitting these pieces together. So how can they see it? Until I started fitting them together, I couldn't see it. I was very skeptical of authority, always was, and the people who claim to be in power, but this bigger picture, I hadn't got a clue. And one of the areas, to come to your question, that I've understood more and more in the last few years, has to be looked at before we can understand the true nature of what's going on in the world, and that's actually the true nature of reality. And how we can control our own reality instead of having our reality dictated to us. I mean, you know, we think we are at the cutting edge of human knowledge and everything. And yet, if you stop someone in the street out there, or in any other city in the world, and you said to them, who are you? Where do you come from? Where are you going when this is over? And what is the nature of reality? Huh? And here we are, living our lives every day in this world, and we don't even know what this world is. The few who are behind the people we see, they know what this world is. And they know how the mind works. They know how, if you can control the way people think and perceive, you completely control their lives. If I want to wave my hand about, my hand doesn't wave about. I have thought to wave my hand. So if you can control that level of people, then their behavior is completely controlled by you. And I went through the last few years looking at this deeper level of this conspiracy, how we're manipulated to think and perceive the way that suits the agenda. And of course, even on a simple level, if you can get the vast majority of people to perceive the European Union as a good thing, to perceive that it is the only way forward, to perceive it is their safety, to perceive it's the way to secure them economically, they'll agree to join the European Union. There'll be no problem. If you get the minds first. And I started to understand amazing things. And that is, this world we think is solid, not solid at all. The only place this world exists in the apparent physical form we think we see is in our heads. The five senses just take vibrational information, turn it into electrical signals, feed it to the brain, and from that information the brain constructs our reality. It's a computer system, basically, on the physical level. You know, when we want to go onto the internet, we can't just go on the internet. We go on the internet through an interface called a computer. That takes us on the internet. That's what the body is. It's a computer system that takes consciousness and allows it to experience this reality, just as we experience the internet through our computers. And what I've understood, we'll go into it at length now, but I said well over the weekend in the two talks, what I've realized is that those in the shadows who understand how the system works, they've hijacked the computer. They're dictating its sense of reality. They're programming the computer. Now, if you wanted to program a human computer system to see the world the way you want them to see it, then what would you say? You sit around a table. Well, I don't know if they'd agree to this because it's outrageous, but what if we could get them to agree to give us their children from a very early age and let us have control of what their children receive in terms of information and perception of possibility in themselves at least 5 days a week for their entire childhood and teenage years. During this, if they'd let us do that, then we at the end of it would turn out people who are programmed purely by repetition, never mind anything else, to see the world the way we want them to see it. And then, of course, once we've done that to a few generations of people, those people called parents will then pass on that programming to the next generation, and so it goes on, and so it goes on. And so we have been subjected to mind programming over generation after generation after generation. So most people in the world already see the world the way those manipulating want us to see it. And therefore, they're not people who are making conscious decisions based on weighing up the situation. They are people who are merely following the programmed perception, thinking that they're coming to their own conclusions.
We are consciousness. We are infinite consciousness, where all that is, has been, and ever will be. And what we're doing is having an experience within this tiny frequency range called visible light. And we're having an experience. And what happens, because of the way the control system is set up, we are pressured from the moment we come from the womb to identify self with the vehicle, the body-mind, and forget that we are consciousness having an experience through the body-mind of this reality. It's a bit like sitting at the computer and going on the internet and then becoming the computer instead of the person sitting at the desk observing the internet through the computer. And it's this fundamental misunderstanding, programmed, encouraged, pressured misunderstanding of self-identity, of self, that holds humanity in servitude, going through its, quote, life, believing that it's its name, it's its job, it's its family, it's its race, it's its religion, when they're all just experiences. And I had this vision's a grand word, it's not a vision, pictures in my mind a little while ago. And it started off with, I saw billowing energy, which I immediately took to be consciousness, disembodied awareness, which is what we are. Then in this energy an eye appeared, and in front of the eye a telescope appeared, and at the other end of the telescope appeared the earth and the universe and what have you, this reality. And then the final movement was the telescope morphed into a human body, right? Which was incredibly profound. Because I would say this, you know, we talk about incarnating,
Yeah.
which gives the feeling of coming into something. We don't come into something. And then when we die, we go out. Well, these are all kind of illusions. We don't come in and we don't go out. We observe through the lens of the physical body. So if I sit at the computer and I observe the internet through the computer, when I get up and walk away, or whether I turn the computer off or whatever, I haven't moved, right? If you follow me. When I'm observing the internet, I'm sitting in the chair. I'm alive in this world. I have incarnated. And then I turn the computer off, still sitting in the chair. I've now died. He's died, he has, and it's sad. I haven't bloody moved, right? And this is what, the way I perceive it, and this series of pictures I saw just confirmed it to me, that we as consciousness, who we really are, we don't go anywhere. We look through the telescope lens and observe this reality as an experience. Because, like I say, if I'm going on the internet, I can't just sit here and go on the internet. I need a conduit, I need an interface to experience the internet. We call that a computer. Well, consciousness experiencing this virtual reality, which is what it is, quite provable fact, needs an interface, and it is the body-mind. I'm not David Icke. David Icke's my experience. I'm infinite consciousness, like you are, everyone else is. And so the consciousness is observing through this lens of the body into this reality. And what we call death, it's what I call putting the telescope down. You know, okay, I've had enough of that. He's died. No, he's just put the telescope down. Yeah. Consciousness hasn't gone anywhere. It's just ceasing to observe through the lens. But because of the way the illusion is constructed and the way we decode the illusion, we see things as going in and going out and moving around and having space between them and time and all the rest of it. They're just illusions, they're just experiences. And we've got caught in the illusion. And see, this global secret society network, which manipulates global events, is all based on manipulating humanity's perception of self in the world. And the reason it's a secret society network, and all the secret societies are fundamentally compartmentalized. I mean, even in a thing like the Freemasons, the vast majority of Freemasons are in the bottom 3 levels of degree. They don't know damn about what happens higher up. And those at the top of the Freemasons don't realize there's other levels above that no one tells them about, where only the chosen few go. And the reason there's all this compartmentalization of knowledge, which hoards the real advanced knowledge right at the top among the very few, is because there is held the knowledge of reality, the kind of understanding that I've just been describing. Now imagine if you know that's how reality is, and you get the people, because of the way you structure the education system and this, what we bravely call science and the media and all the rest of it, and religion, they think all this is real. They think this is who they are. They think that they see everything in terms of a partners instead of unity. You are in an incredible position of control because you understand reality, and the people you are controlling and manipulating have not got a clue what reality they're experiencing. I mean, we reach what we think is the cutting edge of human knowledge. It ain't really, it's not definitely, but it's what we perceive it to be. And you go, oh yeah, we fly to the moon and we got nanotechnology and it's really great. And then you stop someone and you say, who are you? Where are you? What are you doing here? What? And if they don't parrot some religious reaction to you, some religious belief system to you in answer to those questions, then they'll say, I don't know. We're at the cutting edge of human awareness in the 21st century as we perceive time. And we can't answer questions like, who are we, where are we, what are we doing here? What's going on? The reason we can't answer that, well, we can if we do the research and we open our consciousness, but the reason that vast numbers of people can't do that is because the control system is structured so that from cradle to grave that knowledge is kept from them, and the ability to expand consciousness and access their knowledge that way is suppressed and suppressed and suppressed and suppressed. But what's brilliant now is that this control system is losing control. It may seem to be getting more control with more legislation and more police imposition and militarization of the police and more data, more surveillance. Yeah, in the play-out world it seems to have more control. What it's losing control of is the fundamental foundation of its control, and that is the sense of human perception that we are what they tell us we are, instead of understanding what we really are. And the more that happens, the more the control system, as it plays out in all those things, will fall, because it is going down. It's going to go forward for a few years yet. No, I don't have the illusions about that.
How long, David?
My view is, and I think 2012 is a diversion, personally, and I think you're going to see that exploited by Hollywood movies and other things.
See it already?
Yeah. Well, my feeling is around 2016, life in this reality is going to transform. And it's going to transform because this is a virtual reality, quite provable fact. You know, in the Matrix, where Neo says within a computer program, "This isn't real," and Morpheus says, "Well, what is real?"
Yes, yes.
If you're talking about what you can see, touch, taste, hear, feel, whatever, then real is just electrical signals interpreted by your brain, and that's what it is. You know, this reality seems to be outside of us. It only exists in here.
Yeah.
And then you can get deeper and you think, exist in where? And so what our reality is doing, or what this body computer is doing at this interface, is taking vibrational information, encoded in light, encoded in the photons of light. It's turning it into electrical information, same information, different form, passing it to the brain's decoding that information into what is a holographic, illusory 3D world that appears to be solid. And because it's illusory, you can start to see why quantum physics has this bewildering contradiction between the fact that they say the world is made up of atoms, this solid world, and yet they know that atoms have no solidity. Huh? How can that be? There is no contradiction. Atoms are not solid because they're not creating a solid world, because the world ain't solid, it's a construct. And this is what I suggest is we're heading towards in terms of something like around 2016, when this shift starts to take place, this firewall starts to break, and our perception of reality will transform, and also the energetic state that we are existing in will start to move. And we won't have to eat food anymore.
No.
We won't. The animals will not have to kill other animals anymore, because that is not the way it was meant to be. That's the way it has been manipulated to be, because of the state of awareness, for want of a word, awareness, of that which has imposed this sub-reality upon us. And the question then comes, unless there is some force, and there ain't, forcing consciousness to come experience this reality, then we're experiencing this reality in all its apparent limitations and challenges at this point because we chose to. Signs of life. Reading the signs of life. So here's a big, big sign of life. Why, when I'm infinite consciousness, all that is, has been, and ever will be, why is my point of awareness now where I am? Within this reality, experiencing what I'm experiencing, you're experiencing what you're experiencing, everyone else is experiencing what they're experiencing. Why us now? Why? Because we chose to be here. So forget the fact that you're Charlie Jones working down the bank, or Ethel working down the store. No. That's your experience up to this point. Now, let's read the signs of life. We're here now for a reason. What is that reason? The reason is because at this massive point of change, we came to play a part in making it happen as smoothly as possible and bringing down this control system, breaking up the firewall. Oh dear, crikey, that's better. I am who I am, and I was before this perception hacker took over my sense of self. That's what we're here to do. And it's challenging and all the rest of it, but the more we come from the perspective of I am consciousness, having the experience rather than being the experience, the easier it will be. Because what's the worst that can happen?